Good morning, grain traders. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm not assuming you're in the US, but you will join me and the goddess of grain, herself, Angie Setzer. I need to put my teeth in. Where Angie will be giving us all a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in grain markets. But before she does, usual disclaimers, this is recorded live. As you can probably tell, there's no editing or else you wouldn't have heard me messing up already. Expect trigger warnings and trigger words, etc. There's nothing we discuss as trading or investment advice, nothing we say as an endorsement, unless, of course, we're talking about myself or Angie.
I
Yeah,
endorse the both of us. I endorse
exactly.
the hell out of the both of us.
Exactly. We both hate doing it about ourselves, but we don't mind doing it about each other, so it works quite well.
I think they're fantastic if we're honest. So yeah, happy Thursday. Welcome. I seem to have a problem currently. So just like a fun fact about me. In kindergarten, like the only flaw that my perfect self had other than talks a lot is like for some reason in my little brain, the synopsises when they connected orange and green, like you'll still catch me sometimes. I might say green and I start orange or what, you know what I mean? But like Thursday and Wednesday for me right now, struggling. Like I thought it was Wednesday all day.
Well,
So
I'll be honest. This morning when I woke up, I was pretty adamant that it was Friday. So
that's a disappointment.
my day's been a bit shitty all day. To be honest with you.
That's like for me, it's a good thing. If I think it's Wednesday, if I know it's Thursday, but I thought it was Thursday all day yesterday. So yeah, anyway. Happy Thursday. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Assuming it is Thursday, happy Thursday.
Yeah, whatever day it is. So market wise here, what are we talking about? I don't know. It's same stuff, different day, right? That's why it's the holiday season, and I won't sing to you, but now a song is stuck in my head. And we're watching corn, especially today. Like corn right now is yo-yoing. It's coiling, I think would be the technical term that someone smarter than I would
Like a
say.
spring.
Yeah, like I don't feel comfortable using words like it's coiling and head and shoulders chart patterns and such. But, if you look at corn, we're really looking at higher lows. And, really so far, I would say, I don't know if I want to say lower highs, but we really just haven't broke out, on where we had been a couple weeks ago. Now, the thing that's interesting, I really do feel like corn could have the story that, the sleeper story, which is a little bit different for me here. If you'd asked me 2, 3 weeks ago, I'd have probably said, oh, coin's probably stuck for a bit. It doesn't really need to move much higher or whatever. But like, I look at basis levels year over year, and I look at a lot of things and I am sorry, but we did not build enough storage to create, this market structure that would put enough grain away that you would see stronger basis with 1.8 billion bushels more corn. Like there's certain things like 2 + 2 is 4, E equals MC squared or something, like you stronger basis with a bigger crop, like these things do not add up. And so that's the one thing that just has me a little cautious is, like we have some glaring holes in the global S&D when it comes to like, if you look at corn ending stocks, like they continue to dwindle. We continue to see corn demand grow. You just saw today, like there's conversation in Europe now, the EU, where they're going to go ahead and postpone the electric vehicle regulations or the requirement. We're going to try to get away from combustible engines and whatnot. And I don't live. You can correct me if I'm talking completely straight, but
Never.
now they're like, we're going to keep them, but they need to use biofuels and like some other type of fuel that is carbon friendly or whatever. So like biofuel demand is the sleeper. Like, and the thing that I'm watching now too is there's more and more conversation from my friends in Brazil that are like, yo, this is problematic. Like these delays, these needs to replant, like it's not hugely widespread, but it's present enough in the safrinha corn area that it's probably going to lead to a reduction in acreage, a reduction in overall production. Now, mind you, in Brazil, they are increasing demand like hell wouldn't have it. Like you're talking about almost doubling, like you're going to go to almost 2 billion bushel of, or 1.5 billion, excuse me, of ethanol demand by the end of next year, of additional corn ethanol demand that we didn't have a year or two ago. Like the USDA is not capturing that. They're not capturing the seed demand. They're not capturing the growing seed demand, pretty much around the world to a certain extent. And so It becomes problematic though, because it's a head scratcher. Like we're already at 3.2 billion bushels of corn exports. That's what the USDA bumped it up to on Tuesday. Like this is massive. We've never seen a corn export program of that size. I've got to look at it. I think that, it requires us exporting 60 million bushels plus a week. I've got to do the math just to kind of update all of that. But, it is possible that we could export even more than that if we maintain this pace. Today's export sales, for the middle of November had us selling 2.3 million metric ton of corn. It was well above the highest end of the pre-report expectations. And when you look at the global market, that's the part that gives me the biggest pause. We don't have competition until Argentina starts up. And even then, if you look at Argentina right now, like their primary corn growing areas are the ones that are experiencing the driest conditions and look to maintain the driest setup as we work into January. On top of all of that, and I'm trying not to be like, please don't, like Angie's always bullish the market. I'm really, but on top of all of that, we have the China thing with their problems, their quality, their this, their that, and the other thing. And so that has my attention more than anything. And then, of course, we have the Black Sea. How does this all come together? What does that look like? And obviously it's an overbearing sort of theme in the market that a peaceful resolution to the war is going to change how grain is flowing. We've talked about this. That's not necessarily the case, but, that might be what caps corn. The idea that we have enough corn too. There's this argument that we have to adjust feed and residual. Yes, we do have to adjust feed and residual if we adjust production. That is going to come down. If they maintain this high, lofty production level, I think folks have to recognize the residual component of the feed and residual. And the USDA is probably not going to change that unless they see something big and stocks what they need to, and so we'll see. Moving over to soybeans, China side, we did see, and we saw them officially announce the slowdown in what is going to be imports into northern ports. This is really going to hit Brazil and Argentina's beans that are flowing to China right now. Like basically they have like 25 days to offload. There's just, Eduardo from AgriInvest called the measures draconian, if that helps. Like you can Google that if you want to. He said that it's going to cause, a lot of major issues in slowing down the offload of these boats, these arrivals of beans. And so we've seen the domestic market strengthen as a result. There was a lot of talk of, oh God, China crush margins are so bad. Like all of these beans are arriving from Brazil and Argentina. That's going to limit their need for U.S. beans, yada, yada, yada. Well, now the Chinese government has figured out that they're going to figured out how to throttle back these imports from these other suppliers, basically create an artificial shortage in the domestic market, push up domestic demand, and push these end users, these crushers, to government auctions, government reserves. And so the bushels that you saw auctioned off by the government this morning were actually auctioned off at the same value you could buy U.S. bushels for out of the Gulf, just without the tariff. So they're 10% cheaper than the tariffed beans. And so this is how China's going to go ahead and turn their reserves. Right. They're going to turn all of their stocks. They're going to have the nearby, they're basically going to make room to make these purchases, to take these deliveries. And the argument that they aren't going to is, I don't know what it's being driven by. It's
use your words, Andrew. Use your words.
Sandra Bullock. What is it? Do you remember the birdcage? Like these people that are still trying to be like, China's not going to take delivery. Like it's Sandra Bullock in the birdcage. Like let's just stop with that, because they're going to. They're making the moves necessary in order to facilitate the 12 million metric ton that they said they would. Maybe they go upwards of 15. Who knows? They might buy an extra 3 million metric ton next year if Brazil's basis stays firm and it works for them and they end up turning these reserves over. And so that'll be the thing that we're watching there. Otherwise, it's just kind of we're gearing up for the holiday here, and I hate to be that person.
So I've got a question for you. And I was meaning to ask yesterday, and then I completely forgot. So traditionally, well, I say traditional markets, there's nothing more traditional than commodities markets. As I know, I slap myself on the wrist for even thinking otherwise. But for non-ag markets, such as financials, etc., it's always been kind of my take that sometimes after Thanksgiving, but there was an argument to be made that it would be after December's Fed decision, which was obviously last night, well, yesterday for you. that traditionally most market participants in financial markets and stuff will then step away for the holiday season, down tools, come back in the new year because, if you've had a good year, you don't want to blow it in the final few months,
Oh yeah.
final few weeks. And if you've had a bad year, you ain't going to make it back in the final few weeks. You'll probably do more damage than good. Now, obviously, it's slightly different for commodities markets because of the cash side. People still need to buy grains, etc. Farmers still need to ship if they need to or get rid of. So what is the take on this? Is it similar in terms of the liquidity and things do die down, or is it, another day things still need to be moved?
No, the liquidity dies down in a big way. I was
Right.
explaining to a customer of mine yesterday about, they were kind of they were wondering why basis was strong, last half December. I'm like, well, let's look at the Christmas holiday, and I was explaining like you basically could take for 2 days of PTO or 3 days. I think I figured it was 3 days of PTO. You could have 8 days off over the holiday. You get Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. You take Friday, the day after Christmas, as a day of PTO. Monday, Tuesday, the following week, PTO. You get New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and you could take PTO off the Friday after. You could take 4 days of PTO and have basically 10 days. And so I know that doesn't necessarily, why is she talking in acronyms? But you don't have the staff.
Right. Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't have the
exactly.
staff. You know what I mean? Because you have these people that they're thinking that. They're like, I can take 4 days of my vacation and I can have 12,
Yeah.
and maybe, and so we used to have to have a conversation, basically ahead of Thanksgiving about how we were going to tackle the holiday, who was going to be there, who wasn't going to be there, how this was going to work. And so, yeah, you throttled back in a big way. Same sort of thing, too.
Got you.
Like if you hadn't screwed up your year so far, take a seat because you're going to, if you aren't careful,
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that's where we're at. I think that's what you're going to see, and most people now are kind of anything big we're going to table after the first of the year. Now it's just a time of cleaning up loose ends, figuring out from a farmer standpoint what you have to sell in order to meet your cash, like your tax,
Yeah.
tax planning is big right now. I had a conversation with a customer just 20 minutes ago. I got 20,000 bushel I got moved before the end of the year because I need that much income. Those types of things are what we're doing now.
Yeah.
If it's good enough, I'll move 80. But if it's not, then it's just that 20 and I'm good. And so that's why, that's really where we're at. And that's part of this. That's why we're going to I think you'll see, potentially an increase in volatility because we have so many of these unknowns and these things that are kind of going to become more clear as we
Right.
move forward. To me, just I'm really continuing to watch the CFTC data. I'm hopeful that the USDA will change their release schedule too on their export sales stuff because the slow roll is stupid. But beyond that, yeah, we're really next week is going to be one where it's just basically like most anyone that has worked their way into a position of middle management or above is basically next Friday they're going to Clark Griswold their way out of here. You know what I mean? They got 2 weeks of vacation coming and they ain't thinking about it until after the first of the year.
And exactly that. And I know I keep thinking that now I keep wanting to really say out loud and shout the shit is full.
Right?
Obviously, you need to have seen the movie to understand what I'm referring to there.
Oh, I know. But if this is a heavily based US audience, everyone's like, I totally get that. So, because we all it's requirement. I think if you watch it in third grade or something, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's where we're at. Nothing else really. I mean, we'll see. I expect corn. I mean, we really got to try to trade above that 450 mark on the March, 452, kind of close above it and maintain it. But yeah, right now, I'm not sure. Someone poke these things with a stick because we're not. We're not doing much. We're just here. So we'll see what today brings. We'll be back tomorrow.
Indeed, we will. Well, Angie, thank you so much as always for giving us the rundown. Really appreciate it. Listeners, really appreciate you too. And whatever you're doing, stay safe,